Hi,
Hi, Jack. Hi.
nice to meet you.
Hi. Hi. Thank you so much for agreeing to meet with me today. Appreciate it very much.
You're welcome. You're in Ireland someplace?
Yeah, I'm in Dublin.
Oh, super.
So first of all, I just want to say that I'm kind of a little bit nervous just because I kind of almost a little bit starstruck or something because I have great respect for you. Um, I suppose I've been interested in the area of spirituality for quite some time, maybe that kind of non-duality, about 10 years or so.
Okay.
And how I see you, which is not necessarily how you are, I know that,
Yeah.
but my perception is just that you're very authentic, um, and that it would be something that I would aspire to also. Um, yeah, and I just feel like in that area of spirituality, which is really what this kind of podcast is for people who are already um familiar with kind of non-dual teachings. So they would be familiar, I suppose, with have some recognition of who they are, the truth of who they are.
Yes. Yes.
Um, they recognize the truth of who they are, but there's a lot of new ideas maybe that people get caught up in.
That's right.
So I think that's what the exploration is um the exploration is, where does self-recognition meet life and our
Yeah.
humanity and our expression of life? Because so in a lot of spiritual teachings, it's that's enough. You just recognize the truth of who you are, and that's the end. But
Yes.
what I see, and I think this is kind of what you teach is really that's just the beginning.
Yeah, that's right.
Like,
That's right.
mm,
Yeah.
so
Well done. God, Amba, you're offering a great service in shining a light on this aspect of the spiritual path.
mhm,
So well done, well done for offering that for people
yeah.
through this podcast.
I suppose it's just kind of sharing, whatever we speak, we're really sharing our own kind of perception. But I
Yes.
guess we all share similar perceptions as well,
Yes.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if you wanted to say anything about yourself. I know you're a spiritual teacher. You have the role of a spiritual teacher if you wanted to. Not a huge, life history or anything, unless you want to do that. But just but just whatever comes to mind, if you'd like to share something to introduce yourself.
Jack O'Keefe, Irish for the first 35 years, and then bumbled around, and I'm living on Kauai, one of the small far out islands, the state of Hawaii in the US. And this is the first place that's ever felt like home on the planet.
Mm.
And so this place works for me. It nourishes my human self.
Mm.
I suppose that lines up then with where I am on my own human evolution,
Mm.
where nurturing myself is actually a huge part of the spiritual path.
Mm.
And many of us, especially if we do the Advaita Vedanta, that reductionist, I'm not that, the neti approach. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
sure, maybe some of your listeners are familiar with those terms,
Yeah.
but that the dry, non-dual sacred teachings,
Mm.
that I'm not that, I'm not my thoughts, I'm not, and it negates all the objective reality, because we're not that. That's not our identity.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we hit the unified field, which is what I am is all of these things. What I am is manifesting it as all these things. But yet, my true identity is none of it or all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one traditional path, and the path that certainly worked for me for several years, was around reducing. I'm not that. I'm not getting caught in that. Let's not have that, and see if not go there, not engage in that, not satisfy that desire, and see what it brings up. And an awful lot of what I saw that needed to be cleared within myself was from that lessening of distractions in the world, and dropping in, remaining as stillness and silence. And then, of course, because you give that attention, it opens up. You discover all kinds of wonderful things. But there is a price to be paid.
Yeah. like
which
neglecting the human
you
side.
neglect the human, Amba, you said it.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
neglect the human. And I mean, that might be fine if you're living in a monastery where somebody gives you the food and they take
Mm-hmm.
care of your bills, and you've been guided to disconnect from your family.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like that's becoming obsolete.
Mm-hmm.
This needs to be normalized. So if there is going to be this mass awakening, which there seems to be a lot of people interested and pulled towards this,
Mm-hmm.
but we all can't leave our marriages and our jobs, and you know,
Mm-hmm.
we can't. It's just not feasible. Surely our spiritual awakening doesn't require our life to be upside down and inside out, and it doesn't require that. There aren't a lot of models of how to do it yet and stay in the world.
Yeah.
You know? Mm-hmm. And what does that mean then if we're including our humanness? You'll find some spiritual teachers and leaders out there saying, well, I'm not a human, I'm an avatar, or human needs don't apply to me. But of course, even when we're in denial of our own human needs, they will sneak in, and they get projected onto our friends or our community or our students, followers.
I think something in us knows as well that it's not quite right. Like it's not kind of complete. I think to just take that.
I hope so.
Like that one side, like I'm pure awareness or something. And we know that's true and it's beautiful, yes. But like we can't really like neglect experience, because I find myself when I'm talking to people, sometimes the words come out, like I say, like the experience doesn't really matter. But then I'm like, no, that's not true.
Yes.
Like, of course it has to matter or it wouldn't be seeming to be here. It
Yes.
has to matter,
Yes.
And I think something in us knows that. So,
yes,
like there's an exploration of how we can bring, I suppose, the insights that we're learning through spirituality, like how we can bring that into our lives and
that's right.
Really live peacefully, I suppose, is the bottom line.
That's right. Yeah, no matter the job, no matter the, like I remember, years ago, it's like, oh yeah, I can't go to nightclubs, I can't go to pubs anymore, I can't drink alcohol anymore, I can't. And that was the path I was on. And then I was like, all right, now I want to investigate to see if I go for a pint, if I go to a nightclub, really, is it resistance? Is it an idea? Like what will I learn about myself?
Yeah, like what comes up in that environment or something.
And inviting it. I mean, move towards the challenge.
Yeah.
There's huge growth there. But the problem with that is if we're not self-aware enough, we can be destructive. If we have a habit, we don't love ourselves enough on a human level, and if we've had a rough childhood that we haven't healed, we will move towards challenge thinking that it's a growth spurt, but actually all we're doing is repeating trauma. There's a layer of it. So like, it's very tricky territory, isn't it? You need this wisdom of like, yes, I'm whole enough now to be able to, and clear enough within myself to be able to walk into a challenge, to learn more about myself, but not to re-traumatize or hurt myself. It's not that. It's for growth and learning, not to hurt myself again.
And what do you think like grows that wisdom inside us?
What creates spiritual maturity? Isn't that what that wisdom is, I suppose, in another word?
Yeah.
Being an old soul. Okay, that's not much use because that's something we can't work towards.
I don't know if there's an answer, like
necessarily
like I don't know, like what I see, I don't know if it's true like for everybody, but like I kind of feel like just that choice to really to recognize the truth of who you are over and over again in the middle of challenges of life and all in all different circumstances, to kind of choose that over and over again somehow grows your wisdom. Somehow, like you just find yourself at another point in your life, and like it's not like you can't make that wisdom be there. It's just like it arises from inside you, and maybe at different
Yeah.
points in your life, like, like I'm probably, let's say I can recognize that there's maybe a little bit more wisdom than there was 5 years ago. And maybe
Yes.
in 5 years' time, there'll be a little bit more. And like that's
Yes.
just a kind of a growing thing through
Yes.
choosing to recognize yourself or something. I don't know if
Yes.
that's true or not, but like I see that in
Yeah,
myself.
no, that makes perfect sense. And I'd add in some human qualities that we can cultivate
Mm-hmm.
and be aware of so that they can become more of our personality, which will help us create wisdom. And one is
Mm-hmm.
humility,
Yeah.
authentic humility.
Yeah.
Because if you think you know it all, there will never be wisdom there.
Yeah.
I'm beyond all of this. That will shut down the cultivation of wisdom. If you know that, yeah, I will always be on a spiritual path.
Mm-hmm.
My orientation wants to continually grow.
Yeah.
There is no final getting there. There's the recognition of my true nature, but there's deeper than
Yeah.
that too.
Yeah.
There's deeper than that too,
Yeah.
and so being open to feedback,
Yeah.
having no hierarchy in terms of I know more than those. They're stuck in the illusion, believing something, I know more. There's
Yeah.
the absence of humility as
Yeah.
well.
Mm-hmm.
And so the cultivation of humility helps us to go from the head
Mm-hmm.
into the heart.
Mm-hmm.
And wisdom comes when we live from the heart.
Yeah.
And it's not the idea of what the heart means. It's the recognition that love is really the only power that's moving any of this.
Yeah.
And what does that feel like and look like, and how does that show up in your life? Because the idea of how it might show up will be entirely different to how it really shows up.
Mm-hmm.
It can be entirely different,
Yeah.
and only we know if, like, was I talking from a load of crap there, or is that really love shining through? And am I of service to that love? Is my
Yeah.
humanness in service to that love?
Yeah.
And so I think humility, honesty,
Yeah.
listening more than we speak, really listening,
Mm-hmm.
not having emotional reactions, but watching to see, oh, I would love to fly off the handle there and put that person in their place. I would love to justify myself here. I'd love to defend myself. Let's just stop, let the emotion run through and see what's going on underneath that for me. That'll cultivate wisdom, that type of listening on the inside, not hiding from any aspect of ourselves. So it helps us to open up on the inside when we're listening.
Would you see that as a kind of a practice, because I feel like that's a big thing for many people, like reaction to things.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes we just find that we react. Sometimes it's like it just happens by itself that we don't react, and we see that there's something that wants to, but we don't. So I don't know. Do you think, well, I guess it is something that you can practice. It's just being more present, isn't it? More present with what's happening inside you.
And the thing about reacting versus responding,
Yeah.
reacting is, you're saying, it just like happens automatically.
Mm-hmm.
If we're solid in ourselves, if we're in touch with that place of stillness, in our personal power, nothing to prove, that we're in a place of self-love, we're in one piece inside ourselves, we actually won't react.
Yeah.
We actually won't. It's only then we're in a position to see it. What I've noticed is that when self-love and self-care, when your own autonomy isn't in place, and you practice not reacting, it comes from an unhealthy place of usually being a victim or trying to do the right thing to take away the uncomfortable feeling that was there to begin with. So we can only do that practice of not reacting when we're actually at peace and stillness inside ourselves. Do you see?
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's a hiding place for the foundation of the state of mind we're in that moment, or the emotional state we're in that moment. It'll be just another mess.
Yeah.
And
I suppose I kind of say it's a practice because sometimes it happens, like sometimes it is kind of feels natural that you're in that place of just you know, you're just kind of peaceful and strong in yourself, and like it doesn't really matter what anyone says. Like, I mean, you might feel it like, oh, didn't feel nice, but like you don't have to respond.
Yeah.
But I say it's a practice because at least what I see in my experiences here and there, it's like sometimes it can be like that, but then sometimes it's just like certain things would trigger me more, or maybe sometimes if I'm very tired or something like that, I'd be much more likely to, like, for example, I'm much more easily triggered with certain people, like with my son who's 5. He's very good
Yes.
at triggering me.
I
Like,
bet.
yeah, yeah. But like I think it's great, you know, because like he's teaching me more and more patience. And of
Yes.
course you want to be loving to them. Like ideally you'd want to be loving to everyone. But somehow it's like it's easier with people that you really genuinely feel like you're connected with and you love, and you don't want to be kind of angry or
Yes.
this kind of thing. But also at the same time, it's like somehow it just happens in that
Yeah.
relationship dynamic. Like it
Yes.
brings up the same. I think I kind of see it's like a whole system, you know. So I'm a mother now, but so it's bringing up stuff that would have been with my mother. So it's like a loop kind of thing. Something.
It is a loop. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where you get the chance
Mm,
to unravel stuff that you wouldn't have seen before. And life will do it, you know. So, you know,
yeah.
when we're on this path, we do pull inward a bit more. We do,
Hmm.
because the inside becomes, you know, our mind
Mm,
has stopped going out and it's going
yeah.
in.
Hmm.
But to keep those challenges going, be around friends that drive you nuts if you're not lucky enough to be a parent and learn in that way.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, that's kind of a your
Yeah.
teacher is going to be with you for 20 years there. And
Yeah.
so I'm saying you're lucky in terms of like, wow, the challenge is right inside your home.
Yeah.
So you're lucky in terms of your soul's evolution, you
Hmm.
know. Um, and to put ourselves in a situation of challenge, but we have to be in our wholeness to really
Yeah.
use it well, to
Hmm.
really use it well, you know. Otherwise we'll just be compounding other patterns and
Mm.
justifying our way around them, you know.
What would you say to someone who feels like, yeah, like they hear that and it sounds like totally, oh, yeah, right. Like that sounds true and right, but they feel like not in their wholeness?
Yeah.
Because this comes up, doesn't it? Like it's easy to say, yeah, I'm in my wholeness. And if you're in your wholeness, you know, it's much easier as well. But for someone who wants to reach that state of wholeness so that they can be with whatever
Yes.
arises in a more peaceful way,
Yes.
would you have any kind of suggestion for them?
Yeah. Do you know what I find is really useful there? Well, I mean, the classic is loving yourself unconditionally. That's the goal,
Yeah,
is
yeah,
loving yourself unconditionally. And
yeah.
a useful set of framework, rather, on the way to there is to recognize our personal power.
Mhm,
So there's a power that we have because it's our birthright, and that's our personal power. It's our birthright
mhm,
as a person, as a human being. And so, you know, the right to be heard, the right to be here, the right to have a life, the right to have your own autonomy, uh,
mhm,
you know. And it's like, do I have those rights, or have I just assumed I don't have any rights here?
mhm,
Like my personal rights that are my birthright.
mhm,
That's really important. Now, where the other aspect of this framework is that our professional role, whatever type of work that we do in the world, be it voluntary or for money, um, those roles bring a power with them too,
mhm,
but it's only a role. And while you're being mother, you're playing the role of being mother.
mhm.
But when you're not playing role of being mother, drop it.
Yeah.
And when I'm being a spiritual
Mhm,
teacher, like drop it. Sometimes my husband says, I'm looking for
mhm.
my wife, not my teacher right now. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
You know, like, yes, wrong. Yeah, I misread the situation. That happens a bit, you
Mhm,
know.
yeah.
I'm like, oh, I misread it. I thought he was asking me to talk to help his
Yeah.
soul's journey, but actually he just wants a conversation about something in the world, you know.
Yeah.
And I misread it with him.
Mhm,
Um, uh, so like, do we drop the roles that we play,
mhm,
you know? Or, you know, if we're in a role of being a therapist, do we try to therapize everybody, whether they're asking for it or not?
mhm.
that's really an interesting thing to do, because we can be hiding behind our profession, whether it's paid or not, we can hide behind it. And what's happening is that it's camouflaging. I'm okay exactly as I am, without any profession, without any role or position in the world. Actually, I'm fine. So there's our profession, the role of that. And then there's the role of the status that our culture gives us. You have different status dependent on your skin culture, your skin color. You have different status depending on your gender. You have different status if in some cultures, if you have a PhD, it's really important in the US to have a PhD. Whereas in Ireland, actually, it's like, I'm sure you can do that if you want. Like, it's interesting. It's like the status around that is applied according to cultural norms, and to be aware of that too. So do we the status of me being fully awake is really important in this culture. I know somebody recently who's a Swami. She's a Swami, and she was living in a town that didn't recognize her orange robes at all. It's like, okay, she might be, one of the Hare Krishnas who sits at the traffic lights and chants. And of course, people judge that group, and she just gets dismissed. She could not rise to the challenge. Bless her heart. She couldn't see that. But I'm a Swami. Can't they see all the sacrifices that I have made and how I've dedicated my life to in service of others? I'm like, what? Why do you want credit for it or status for it in your culture? And what happened was she's actually moved. She has moved this month to a community of where other Swamis lived. She couldn't do it. She needs the status of her spiritual commitment. She needs the monastery to recognize who she is. She just needs it because her own self-worth isn't strong enough. She can't say, this is what I've chosen to dedicate my life to. But actually, me as a human being, that's where my wholeness is. And so when we compensate, my job as principal of a school, that's actually where I get my power. And if that's camouflaging for our personal power, we're not going to have an authentic awakening. We're not. We will use awakening to give us more power. That's not an authentic awakening.
When you're talking, what's coming here is like, just don't have any idea about yourself in a given moment. Like in any moments, don't hold on to any ideas about who you are. So therefore, you're not really in a role. Is it like that or not?
Could I take it a step further? Because that would be the non-dual way, which would be to remove yourself from all of it. But if we're like, we need to stay living in the world, then it's when I'm playing that role, it's from 9 to 5. Or when I'm being a parent, it's when I'm taking care of my child. I put on the role and I take off the role.
Like it just kind of would happen naturally, wouldn't it?
You'd imagine. You'd imagine, but it doesn't. Like,
so is this what could happen? Like, let's say, as an example, just so I understand, let's say if you're in a mother role when you're with your child, so you're going to be in the role, so then your child is not there anymore. So how you would continue that mother role would be that you keep thinking about what happened or something. Or how would you continue a role when they're not there?
It's more that you'd probably be mothering your lover, partner, husband, spouse, whatever.
Oh, okay. You're behaving as a mother.
Mother them too. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You'd go into a job where you'd be mothering them too. Do you see? Because you need to be the mother. You see, when you identify with the role, but the role is something you pick up. Don't identify with any role. Be in your personal power through self-love and, recognizing your rights as a human being, knowing that you're worthy, that you're capable, having confidence in yourself. You see, this level of like, I'm okay, actually, I'm okay. So when I'm engaging in any role in the world, I know when it starts and I know when it stops. And when I come in the door from work, I'm not in that role anymore of an office manager or a teacher, or I'm not. I have to leave it at the door. And then there might be another role. I'm the role of whatever it is, partner or child or parent of my whatever, you know. So, or there's nobody in my house when I go home. Okay, I'm in my personal power, then there's no role being played. It's simply me. So the roles are fine. It's the identification with them, or it's taking extra juice from them, making them being special, giving us an identity that's very sticky.
Yeah. Like it means something and I want this for myself kind of thing.
Yes. And the thing is, exactly, I want it for myself to compensate.
Yeah.
For some inadequacy, because I don't believe I'm okay underneath it all.
Yeah, some false idea that's there.
Some false idea, that's right. And this is how, this is one area of tricky spots that can obscure the spiritual maturity that we need to have an authentic awakening.
Yeah.
We will use the awakening to merge in with some compensatory aspect, because I'm not whole and complete as a human being. So it's like, oh gosh, that's the awakened state. Okay, I should really be a teacher, shouldn't I? It's like, whoa, now we're attaching to a role. Now immediately the stillness isn't enough, you're attaching to a role. So that brings me right back to your personal power isn't in place, and you need some status to compensate for your own personhood. See how it's woven together. Am I making sense, Amba?
You are making sense. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's tricky, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
What the mind does.
So do you feel like just kind of self-awareness would be enough for really just noticing like the different plays that happen inside us, like to notice if that's happening or not, like to notice if we're holding on to a role, and to notice if we're trying to compensate for things, like, so to just this is a kind of question that comes up in myself a lot, and when I'm talking with people, and I seem to be kind of adamant about it or like I feel like strongly about it, that like kind of just we don't really need to do anything, but just awareness is enough, like to just notice the way things play inside us. And I think, I don't know if these are the right words, but if your heart is kind of in the right place, then you just notice and it will kind of not hold on. You know, so if you notice that you're playing a role, for example, to just have the awareness, then you can't really make it unstick or anything, but just the noticing of it lets it unstick. What do you think?
It does for many. It does for many, the awareness of it. And then I suppose another way to say that is like the awareness creates a spaciousness, doesn't it? The awareness kind of gives it a broader context. So now we're not stuck to the role and looking to the role to make us feel okay and worthy as human beings. So the awareness brings that broader context. So now we're not completely glued to it and needing it to feel safe in the world.
Yeah.
So the awareness to it allows it brings it into a bigger room, you know? And that helps to thaw it out. That helps it to move and to break up and to be seen from another angle. That requires a bit of courage. It requires a willingness to let it go, to see through it. And whatever we needed from that and we were getting from it needs to be resolved somehow, somewhere in the world, because how do we function in the world without that kind of misplaced role, you know, the power that we were getting from a role in an inappropriate way. It's like, okay, if we see, whoa, I was on a power trip there, trying to teach so-and-so, trying to teach my friend, and actually, you know, that what my appropriate role would have been to be their friend, not to be their teacher there. All right. So can I sit with that and let that dissolve? And what would it look like? What would it look like for me to be friends with them and not to teach them or tell them the right thing or the better thing and not to save them? Like, why do I perceive that there's something wrong with them and I know more anyway? So the awareness to it will lead us into more layers and more layers and more layers if we are genuinely opening to.
These questions, I think, are good, just kind of like an open question to yourself. Isn't it good? Like, and just to be open to whatever answer comes. Like, like
Right.
not really looking for the answer so much, but like I feel like the question is very important.
Yes. The question is very important. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's, I suppose, just like it's kind of like exploring everything that comes up within yourself, isn't it? Like I would
That's
call
right.
that kind of self-exploration.
Yeah. Don't hide from anything.
Yeah.
Um, ongoing humility, ongoing self-honesty.
Yeah.
See what's there and let other people's perceptions of you be their business. Don't react to them. Let everybody have their opinion. It's got nothing at all to do with who you are or who you think you are.
Yeah.
Like nothing. And that habit needs to be broken. What other people think of me.
Yeah.
That really deserves no attention at all.
Yeah.
That has to stop.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
nobody else can really know anything about someone else anyway.
Not
So
at all. It's their own projection, just like our projection of them and their projections of us.
yeah.
So focus on ourselves, and that's plenty.
Yeah. When you were talking there, even though you were talking about like roles, having different roles, but you used the word identity, so
Yeah.
like that we're kind of identifying. But like identity can come up in loads of different ways, So one way that identity can come up is, I don't know exactly, just like some kind of conditioning, I suppose, is coming up in us, let's say, and there just seems to be like a feeling of, so sometimes conditioning can come up and you can kind of just see it and you say, okay, that's conditioning, so you're not bothered by it. You just kind of let it play out, like kind of like the weather or something. It's like, okay. Or you might get some insight about it. But sometimes conditioning comes up. And even though obviously I'm talking about myself because that's all I can talk about, but sometimes like conditioning comes up and I can know in my mind, that, okay, this is just conditioning. But yeah, it doesn't, I feel like there's something identified with it, like there's something is bothered by it. I don't think it's really a feeling thing because sometimes it can be that the feeling in the body and all, it feels bad, but there's something that's okay with that. It doesn't really matter. It's not looking for a
Yeah.
good feeling,
Yeah.
so like it's okay. So something knows that there's no separate person
Yes.
or something, but yeah,
Yes.
still the experience is that there is an identification with some
Yes.
conditioning that's coming up. So
Yes.
I suppose the exploration is, I don't really know what the exploration is, but like kind of like what to do with that or something.
Yeah. Yeah. When you notice there's some conditioning and it feels uncomfortable, that's where we got to go.
Yeah.
If it feels uncomfortable and your response then in the next moment is to go to, well, it's not real anywhere, it's not what I am, you're bypassing.
Yeah.
You see, we're using the non-dual to get rid of the pain of what's showing up in the story of
Yeah.
me, the experience of personal me. You
Yeah.
see,
Mm-hmm.
and so if we use the non-dual for that, we're going to another realm, to another lens of perception, to ignore it, turn down the volume on it, when actually there's a gem there. If we feel uncomfortable because we've seen a piece of conditioning,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, okay, so let's go stay with the feeling of being uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
What's that? Your open questions, as you're saying, what's that? What makes it uncomfortable? Is it that I shouldn't have that conditioning, or is it shame? Is it helplessness? Is it hopeless? Is it unworthiness? Is it I expected myself to know better? What self-judgment? What is the root of that uncomfortableness? That's the level of identification I'd be after there. What's the pattern there? And let that kind of unworthiness, shame is kind of what it might be for most. Let it move through, because or guilt, those kind of emotions are the stickiest because they don't move. They can keep us stuck.
Yeah.
There's a paralysis in those. And the emotions that have a paralysis, so despair, guilt, shame, helplessness, fear. That's an example. There's 5 of them.
Yeah.
Those ones, what we got to do is like, all right, it's welcome. It's welcome. Let it be in my body. Don't jump into the non-dual. Don't jump in. Let it be here.
Yeah.
What we need to do is give it movement. If you can train your brain and your body to give movement to the emotions that are about freezing you.
Yeah.
You see, because guilt and shame is like, That's what they're there. It's to protect you by freezing you. That's what they're there for.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, don't do anything here and you'll be safer. And we learned that way back, way back. We just got to stop everything. And that's the best way I can stay safe here. And some of us left our bodies when the experience was too bad, you know?
It's like trauma,
So,
like the people use the word trauma a lot these days, and it is a trauma. Yeah.
It is. It's a trauma. It's a trauma. And so if there's any of those types of emotions that like they're kind of stuck and they're really uncomfortable, and we want to go into the non-dual in order to get out of them because they just don't freaking move. So, let them move through your body. Bring in movement. Let it move up through. Like move your arms, move your eyes, move your face.
Just literally just like feel the emotion and feel your physical, just let your body,
literally move
physical
your body.
movement.
Literally, because it's the opposite of what it's trying to do. It's trying to make you freeze so that you protect yourself. Don't move. You won't attract any attention to yourself and you'll stay safe. Yeah. That's where we learned it. Those ones that they're shitty to experience. Guilt, shame, despair. We're frozen. Yeah. They're awful. And they can stay around for days, weeks, you know, like that awful pit in your stomach. It's like, okay, bring in movement to it. Go for a swim, go for a run, you know, move your eyes, move your face, like let it be here and bring in movement. And if it moves, it can leave you. It will leave you. Yeah. It will leave you. Yeah. You know, it will leave you.
In that moment. And say if it's like a conditioning thing that you've seen like 1,000 times, it's just like every time it comes, just do the same thing. Like we don't need to be concerned, do we, if it's how long it's going to stay around for.
If you train your brain and your body to like, oh, I know this feeling, I need to move my body and move it out. The next time it comes, you won't need to, it'll move faster. Next time, it'll move faster. You'll be training your body to like, oh, there's unworthiness or there's despair, there's helplessness. You automatically go into moving. It will be over in seconds. In seconds, because you're bringing motion to it rather than waiting for months for something that we didn't know to move it on, which was motion. So it's like bring mobility to it and get it moving. We'll shorten our experience of it so that it's like, oh, there's that. And we'll automatically end up moving. It's like, whoo, I'm going to just go to the loo or move myself out of this room and shake like crazy. And you shake it off. You can be done in half a minute.
I think that's really good advice. And I think then we don't really have to go into our minds, you know, because there's this whole kind of tool, you know, that you have to go in and like you have to find where it happened in childhood and all. And it's so stressful, like to go there, I think. And it's hard, like it's difficult, and you're just going into the feeling, but in a frozen way. You're like, because it's already frozen, then you're thinking,
that's
so
right.
I think this movement.
Well done. It's the body. The body is the way out of the freeze state. Moving the body. It's the way out of it. Yeah. We were right. And it's contrary to what we do. We end up thinking it to death and, you know, analysis paralysis. Like that's what happens, you know.
Like, I think if anybody can take even just one thing from this chat, like I think that's a huge thing. Because if we don't get stuck in the stuck feelings, then like it's hard to have much of a problem with anything else, isn't it?
You said it, Amba. Exactly that. Yeah. Exactly that.
So I actually think we've said it like 1,000 times already, but someone asked me to ask you if there's any particular, or if you recommend practices as a thing, or do you, and also if you do like spiritual practices, you know, like the way people might chant as a kind of a thing. Oh, okay, I must chant today. You know, I know like anyone can do anything spontaneously, but as a kind of a practice, do you do anything for yourself or recommend anything? Now, I know we've already talked about a few practices.
Yeah, sure. And a spiritual practice is kind of a, you know, a specific thing, you know. It's, for me, I suppose a spiritual practice is the vehicle to get you inside to the stillness. So I think that's where they're most useful. It's like it's a method to dial you in, a vehicle really, a transporter to get you from the thinking chatterbox mind to dropping your attention to inside. And how can it stay there for a little bit longer and a little bit longer? And spiritual practice trains your system to do that, to where your attention can be softly resting on the inside. So you're not hooked in to the outside world.
Yeah.
And that's the gem of a spiritual practice. So for me, the spiritual practice would be anything at all that would enable me to, oh, there it is. There it is. Chanting really worked for me, really worked. And I would just chant for a few minutes and bingo, there it was. Or a guided meditation. Or having a spiritual book, you know, and you just randomly open a book that kind of like, whoa, read is the right thing. One of those classics. It would be really good to have something like that available, you know. So it's like, all right, here's my spiritual practice. I'm going to read this, and when I can taste something and get out of my head, when I have a felt sense, all right, now stop the practice and enjoy. And can I stay there for a few minutes? Let's see how long I can stay there for. And so for me, the practice is the vehicle to really let you dissolve into what you really are, dissolve into that, the state that's not created by your mind, the state that's not a state of mind.
Yeah. So it can just be like for each individual person, it can just be a kind of self-guided, like what they find works for them. Kind of thing.
That's right. Or in meditation online, or it's like, well, what is it that drops you in there? And when you dropped in there, okay, I'm there now, I can feel it, go out to the world. No, stay there. Stay there as long as you can. Stay there for as long as you can, you know? Let it be 5 minutes even, or 2 minutes some days, or whatever you can do. But it's the vehicle to stay inside. And when we're really busy doing, it can be about the practice, but then we forget to stay inside. Yeah. It's like, it's really a vehicle because it's about abiding. It's about hanging out in that place of stillness. It's about letting your attention rest there and not be caught up in storyland. Yeah. You know, so we might find that a book works for a while. It's like, okay, it's not doing it anymore. Move on to something else. Yeah. That's what I would find. It got dried out, you know, and it's like, okay, let's see what comes next. Okay, I'll try mantra. Yeah. Or I'll YouTube and I'll go in and I'll learn a chant and I'll just keep singing it with that YouTube, and that's still doing it. Oh, great, that's still doing it. You know, there's so many different things, but keep using it, using the same thing. And if it's like, nah, I'm making a shopping list later on, or I'm deciding what I have to do for, you know, next Sunday's whatever it is, while I'm singing this now, it's like, okay, it's not working for you anymore. Get another something. There's a gazillion things, you know.
Do you think is that like all them spiritual practices, are they like they're to connect with your heart, like you said, like to come out of your mind? But isn't there something as well? I don't know what I'm saying right now exactly, but isn't there something like that it doesn't really matter what the physical experience is, you know, but you know that you're connected to your heart, like, but like you're not necessarily experiencing stillness.
You're connected to your heart, but you're not experiencing stillness. So what are you experiencing in the connection to your heart there?
So you could be experiencing anything, like, so you're not caught up in a mind story, but like the body sensations could be anything, you know, different kind of because there could be, I suppose, if there's body sensations or doing things, it's probably some kind of conditioning or something, but there's not really necessarily a story attached. The reason why I'm saying this is there's something in me sometimes that's kind of almost like resistant. This could be kind of a new conditioning, a new spiritual conditioning, but it's almost like resistant to having a spiritual practice that's looking for a special experience, because I don't want to be attached to having a special experience, because I don't think that's what spirituality is about. Like, you know, when I opened up your website, jackokeefe.com, it says truth for truth's sake.
Yeah.
And that's what that means to me. It's like, I remember asking myself a few years ago, like, do I want truth because I want truth, or do I want it because I want to feel good and happy? You know,
Yeah.
like,
That's right.
and I felt like, no, I want it because it's true. Like, I only want it because it's true. So I think
Yeah.
it's that kind of thing that
Yeah.
makes me like not want to have, like, I don't want to have to chant or something, or I don't want to have to rely on an experience or create. I don't want to, because I feel like then I'm creating it or something, you know, like I'm creating
Right.
a kind of thing. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yes, it's a really good point, Amba. It's a really good point. Sometimes we need tools because our mind is just too full of crap.
Yeah,
It's just talking too loud, or our emotions are just running amok,
yeah,
and we can't access the stillness. And
yeah,
that's when spiritual practice is really good. It's like, yeah, we're so caught up in a me story that we need some support to bring us into where there's no story.
yeah.
Is it a spiritual experience? It's kind of like there's nothing there,
Mm,
but yet it's delicious. You know,
yeah,
it's delicious. You're absolutely on the money when to highlight, like when people go in and try to make the stillness or the peace inside of benefit to their life.
mm,
It's like, oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God. Now the value is on having a better life and
mm,
not on awakening from that life at all.
mm,
You know, awakening is for itself. It's a natural pull.
yeah,
Whereas if we're doing it in order to make my life better, no, go out and I don't know, read a book about manifestation or do a vision board or something. Go and make your life better. This is not what waking up to truth can offer you. It will
yeah,
take everything.
mm,
It will take everything,
mm,
you know. It will take everything because there is only the stillness, and equanimity comes in, and
mm,
the highs and lows of life are you know,
yeah,
they're less multicolored in that way, you know.
yeah. Let's say you just sit silently, quietly, and you're experiencing just peace, quietness, stillness.
Great.
Is that a better experience than being like um, a busy, just a busy person, you know, going around like doing the shopping and,
Mm,
you know, doing
mm,
all the things you need to do? I know you can
mm.
be in stillness doing all those things sometimes, you know, but I think like naturally in life, our feelings change all the time,
They
or
do.
it seems like to need to have a particular experience. No, I'm not saying this for everyone, like, but it's just a kind of
Yeah,
a, I don't know, it's a weird thing that goes on in my mind sometimes,
yeah.
you know.
I think what I'm hearing is that there can be at times when sitting in stillness balances out.
Mm,
It kind of satisfies a need to rest and be calm
mm-hmm.
and to get away from just for all the demands that are made on you.
Yeah,
And that's fine. That's like mindfulness, or that's stress management, or that's a technique that's really useful for bringing you back into balance.
mm-hmm.
Awakening is something else.
Yeah,
You can use the stillness for that. There's no harm in it at all. But awakening is something else.
yeah.
You see?
Mm-hmm.
And knowing when you're using it for which is like, yeah, I need this for my human well-being so that I'm not a complete basket case.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I just need downtime here. I need everything to stop. And it's like, oh, there's the stillness inside. Oh my God, that's gorgeous. That's not awakening. That's rest.
Yeah.
That's bringing yourself into balance, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And then there's times of spiritual practice where you're opening to the truth of what is, not in order to bring balance to your life, but because the pull home is so strong you can't do anything else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, good point though.
And is that like the pull home because you can't do anything else? Is that like recognizing that what we
Yeah,
are, like in a way you could say that stillness that's beyond everything, that
yeah,
that's just here all the time, regardless of what's happening and regardless of
yeah,
experience is here.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
just a kind of a that recognition.
yeah.
And
That's right.
yeah, and
That's right. And like it's inevitable that the only thing I everything has been taken away from me, every interest. The only thing I'm interested is is in my awakening and discovering what truth really is for myself. And it kind of takes over. And it kind of, some people say that it's robbing them of life, It has its own momentum. It's not a decision, oh, I'm going to go on a spiritual path. Like, that's fine. That's the pull to awakening that we're really talking about. That's like the next thing to do to make my life nicer. But the real awakening stuff, that has its own momentum, and it'll take you if you're ready or not. If you want it or not, it's going to pull you, and then that's really because your soul's journey is at a phase of waking up to the truth of what is, and not it's finishing believing thoughts to be true.
So there's that like self-recognition, and then there's like all this kind of conditioning, which is basically a bundle of ideas, isn't it? And like things that we've believed about ourselves. So as we're recognizing ourselves, those ideas are loosening or something. They're loosening and leaving us, like you said, like just like have a little movement and it can be gone in like a few seconds.
Absolutely.
You said like that. Even like I just went like that. I just did a little wiggle there and it felt good.
That's right.
Even that, like
did a little wiggle there. Yes, exactly. It can be. It will be that efficient if we train our system. Oh, shame. Oh, yeah, that comes out this way. Unworthiness. Oh, yeah, that comes through this way. So we end up getting very skilled.
And that's just something that just kind of happens. This is just it's just kind of the like the way a leaf grows on a tree, isn't it? Like a little bud grows on a tree and a leaf comes and then it falls off. Like, so the same happens in humanity. Like, it's just we kind of something recognizes itself and then like the things get loose and they fall off. That's like the leaves falling off the tree or something. And I don't know, like, I think maybe like as your spirituality progresses, maybe more things like you said, self-recognition is not the end of it or something. You said something like that. But I don't think we really kind of need to know until we know.
Absolutely.
So I know that you do talk about stuff like that sometimes, but like I find for me sometimes that like can just kind of bring me into my mind a bit. Like, and then it's like, but I don't want to be in my mind. So I don't really need to know. Like if I need to know it, then it'll become apparent.
It will.
Like that.
It will. That's
or it'll become clear. Like it's probably helpful to hear things that are beyond you sometimes. Like, and maybe it can bring you up there.
It is because there's a lot of there's a wave within the non-duality teachings that the non-dual is the truth, and there's anything deeper than that is mind, and they're just a set of teachings. They're just another set of teachings. There's Buddhist teachings that go non-dual, and they say non-dual is halfway. Like it's just a set of teachings, and it reminds me kind of like of the Catholic Church, where I heard like it's the one true church. Okay, maybe it is. And then like, but how do they know that? Like, I need to learn about other, like as a kid, I need to learn about other religions too. Are they really? How do they know that it's the one true church? And the non-dual thing has a little bit of that arrogance. To say, hey, not the end game. If you're very much born to the non-dual, yeah. And it can open up deeper than that, but there ain't no mind there, so you're right, you can't, it's not a mind game at all. Then you can't make that happen at all. There's no volition there.
And before we just finish for today, is there anything that you'd like to say about that? Blow all our minds at the end. Beyond like self-recognition. Any words? I don't know.
Between the capital S self-recognition and it happened for it to go deeper than that. Going back into the world is necessary, recognizing, because that will help you to bring your heart into it and to know what compassion really is, the potency of love and how it moves everything, then what shows up is like what I really am is whatever, pure consciousness, pure awareness, absolute stillness, emptiness. What I really am breaks. It's like, oh, that identity of what I really am, that beingness, let that disappear also.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's on a kind of feeling level, isn't it? Like, because you can kind of go there already in your mind, or like it seems like you can recognize it.
Yeah.
In a way, but it's
Recognize
more
the
mind.
direction of it,
Yeah, or something. Yeah, I don't know. You know that something is recognizing your being,
Yeah.
and you know that that's like appearing in something, and it's kind of just an idea as well.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
Like it hasn't really broken. Let's say.
Yeah.
I
That's
think.
it.
Yeah.
And the way that we recognize that beingness and the way that we recognize pure awareness, it's not that type of awareness of it. Like our mind is aware of all the things that it's aware of.
Yeah.
And then our beingness is aware of our beingness. Our mind can't be aware of our beingness. It's when our mind slows down, the awareness of our beingness shows up.
Yeah.
It's there all the time, but we're too busy listening to our mind, and running emotions that are a product of our thoughts anyway.
Yeah.
So when that dials down, it's like, oh, this is there all the time. Now, that which is aware of that is not the same thing that's aware of its absence.
Yeah.
Oh, it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like some kind of a like.
Yeah. Great. Yeah.
So it's a good point to finish, I think.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amba. It was a fun hour.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your presence and your words.
No, I appreciate people like you who just help to offer platforms. Send it out there. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Much love to you, Amba.
Yeah, lots of love. Bye.
Bye for now.